Have you been in a relationship where you felt like something was off, something was wrong, but maybe you thought you're just being too sensitive? Maybe you're making a lot out of a nothing. That that it isn't the other person and isn't what's happening in the relationship, that it's you. Well, this is what often happens when we get into an abusive relationship. We often don't know we're in a relationship where there's subtle criticisms, subtle gaslighting might have already started. You might have that little digs that start to happen. You feel like you're starting to become less, like you can't quite show up yourself, or you have to be really careful. I uploaded a video, a short today, about this, and it was actually a real life situation. This is actually what happened. I was newly married, and my ex had been away for a weekend business trip, and we were just newly married. I'd gotten a patio deck set, some furniture that arrives in your house in boxes and needs to be put together. And I was so proud of myself. I was out there with the tools that I needed, and I was starting to put this together. And he walked in at about that time, walked into the garage, found me on my hands and knees, putting the stuff together. And before I knew it, I started to feel stupid, like I was doing it wrong. And the odd thing is, this wasn't my first my first big relationship, my first committed relationship. I'd spent 31 years in a previous marriage, and I'd put plenty of store-bought and furniture together. It wasn't my first rodeo on this event, and I was shocked by the how insecure suddenly I felt, like I couldn't even hold a screwdriver right. Next thing I know, he was critiquing whether or not I'd counted all the pieces. I'd never counted any of them. How many of you count the pieces when you get something in the mail that's boxed and everything's in packages? I don't tend to count the pieces. I tend to assume that what's in the box is in the box. But next thing I know, he basically had started the whole thing over, and was being done the way that he was being done. And I felt, yeah, you never count the pieces. I don't either. And next thing I knew, I was backing up and letting him take over, and I felt diminished. I felt like I was a little less, a little shakier, not quite as comfortable doing the things that I normally would do. I just started to feel more insecure. So, what I'd love to talk about today is the early stages of abuse. Before we know something's gone wrong, what does it look like? And for those of you who are new to me, I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy, a licensed psychologist with over 20 years of counseling experience. And I'm so thrilled that you're joining me live. And I'd love to take your questions about that early stages. Like, how do we know that we've met somebody who's maybe not good for us, somebody who might be toxic? And by the way, for those of you who are joining me live right now, happy Halloween. I hope you guys have great plans, that you plan to do things safe and be with your kids, or maybe you have a party that you're going to tonight. That I just hope you have a wonderful time. I know that in some parts of the world it's already getting dark. Other parts of the world, maybe Halloween's over already and you're waking up to start your new day. But I'm super excited that you're here with me and that we can talk about, and I love all the pumpkins you guys are sending me, that we can talk about what abuse looks like at the early stages. So, what are some of the things that you experienced early on that you wondered if it was you, or whether or not there was something already starting to go wrong? I found that I noticed that there was a juggle for control, like things that I normally were capable. Remember, I had raised a family of 3 kids, and I had a husband who would. Oh, you're gonna always send me pumpkins. Thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate it. I had raised 3 kids. I already had taken care of had been in a marriage. My first marriage was where my late husband pretty much left everything to home to me. So I ran things pretty much at most of the time from home. And so I was used to doing a lot of things independently. But I remember one of the first things this person insisted is that he needed to be the gentleman, and that he planned to take care of things for me. He planned to take care of me. He even asked, didn't I want that? I mean, as a part of what person do you know when someone comes into your life and they offer to do all this grand gestures? You're like, no, please don't do that. So I was flattered that he was offering to do that, but I felt a little odd because it was in some ways at times it felt like he was suggesting I didn't know better or I didn't know how. Like he commented about how he didn't want really anybody washing his clothes, and I'm thinking I've washed 5 people's clothing for a long time, 20 some years. I certainly know how to get a stain out of a shirt. So I just thought it was kind of strange that he came in and was sort of taking over in some ways, but I also thought it was flattering. But it was really subtle in the beginning. It was this kind of this I know better. There's some criticisms that were happening. I remember one of the early criticism, and this floored me. I didn't say anything, but it was like a gut punch. I just felt shocked. He commented on my driving. How many of you have had somebody comment on your driving? Commented on my driving and said, "You're the kind of driver that makes other people have accidents." And it caused me to pause and to reflect on my history. Oh, somebody said, "I've never could wash my clothes. I never wash clothes." Oh, he never washed clothes. Yeah. Yeah. I suddenly found myself thinking about my whole history of driving and realizing how few accidents I'd ever been in. Um, and the last accident I had been in, and this is wild, a sheriff, an actual sheriff car, sheriff out driving around rear-ended me at a stoplight. So I was sitting at the stoplight and literally the cop car ran into me. So I'm thinking, I cause accidents. How do I cause accidents? I didn't say anything because I just thought this is really, really weird. But I'll tell you, the next time I got into a car, I felt shakier. It was successful in shutting me down. I found myself as we started getting into the relationship longer that I would let him speak. He wanted to handle the money. I would let him handle the money, even though he was living off of my income. I found myself stuttering for the first time in my life. I struggled to speak. There were times that I couldn't even speak at all, that I just felt so shut down, so closed in. And here's the thing that I ignored, and I think this is one of the common things that we don't pick up early on is that I felt less. I found myself feeling more insecure and um, more careful, more edgy. I felt small. I felt like I needed to sort of figure out as if there were bumpers like guardrails in the relationship, and I needed to figure out those guardrails so that I didn't overstep. And I didn't know. Here's the part that I find really shocking. Nobody had ever said to me that a healthy relationship should make you feel more, should make you feel safe, that you should feel like you could show up and be yourself. And that if you're starting to feel like you can't, like you have to somehow modify or adapt yourself, that there's something already going wrong. Yeah, some of you are already echoing that it was that they made you feel small, that nobody had ever told you that you should be looking for that. And I find a wild how many of you guys had partners who commented on your driving, like your driving style was problematic. So are you in some way today experiencing something in a relationship that you would like advice on? Maybe you're wondering, is this normal? Is there something going wrong? Is this typical of relationships, or is this a sign that you're in something that's an abusive situation? And I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy, a licensed psychologist, and I'm thrilled that we can talk about these things together. That's why I wrote my book, Love You More, and it's out in paperback, hardback, Kindle, and it's also on Audible. I'm also selling it. I'm selling the paperback on TikTok, and also you're available to buy it through YouTube if you contact me directly. In selling it as a package with this book called First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist, it's a workbook that takes you through the confusion that you're feeling, and when you really are struggling to know, is it me or is it them? Is this, do they love me? If you're asking yourself questions like, is this relationship healthy? Is this person have my back? Who is this person? If you're finding yourself struggling to know, is this a good relationship, and you're feeling super confused, this workbook is designed to take you through that confusion and help you come to decision to know whether or not this is a good relationship or not a good relationship. And I'm selling them together as a package for $28. So if this is something you think you could benefit, so if you want, like, am I alone? Is this abusive relationship? Does this happen to anybody else? I think I feel really stupid for, I can't even talk. I remember in the midst of that relationship, I couldn't talk about what was happening to me. I felt so ashamed. And there's a scene, there's a moment, in fact, where I first found out he was serial cheating. I didn't even know it was serial cheating. I just found out he was cheating on the honeymoon. I remember coming home on that delayed honeymoon and seeing the light on in my son's room, my adult son's room. And I wanted so desperately to tell him that I just discovered this horrifying, shocking information, life-changing information. And I thought, you can't do that, because if you tell him, he's going to think that you're going to leave. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't want to box yourself in with that decision. And plus, do you really want your adult son to be pitted against the new man in your life? This, not really a stepfather, because my kids were raised, so they didn't need a father that way. But did I really want to, like, pit them against each other like that? Oh man. So I didn't tell him. I wonder now if I go back and I think, what if I'd done that differently? What if I had said something? What would have happened? I don't know. I do end up really wondering about the outcome if I had done things differently. And that's common for a lot of us. So Kimmy Sunshine wants to know, does my book talk about the dangers of leaving a narcissist? No, the second book, First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist, actually gives you a checklist, things to consider when leaving so that you can leave as safely as possible. And it does talk about the ways of leaving, that there are 7 different types of exits, and consider, kind of helps you weigh out the way you want to exit. For example, I knew that in my relationship with my ex, that if I outright left, like said, I'm done, I'm out of here, that it would have set off an explosion. And he had already warned me that he had been violent with another partner when he exited, that it got really bad. And so, and he'd shown enough sides of that to me. I believed him. I knew that I was at great risk. So I knew outright confronting him saying, I'm out of here, was off the table for my safety's sake. I think that's true for a lot of us. So I needed him to want, so I what I did was I wanted him to leave me. That's how I wanted it. I knew that I couldn't leave him safely, but I needed him to be done with me and to leave. And so that's kind of how I was. So I was kind of playing the long game, sticking with something, waiting for that moment for him to just sort of get to the place where life was so intolerable, in his opinion, that he wanted out, and that was going to be my saving grace. So I do talk about the 7 different types of ways of leaving. And what I used was called, I used a crisis. I used a family crisis. Yeah, someone said, how did you do that, Chris? So Crystal, I knew that my life was in a lot of, like, changes, and that he was very money oriented, he was very lifestyle oriented, and he also wanted, like, extraordinary amount of ability to act out because he was serial cheating. So what I was waiting for, a moment, some kind of a, like, a family or personal crisis that would take me in a direction that he wouldn't want to go. So that's, I know it's not very helpful to you, because it's like, well, how do you set that up? You can't. You have to wait for the opening. So that's what I was doing. I knew that I had to watch for the moment in my life that was going to be something that he wouldn't follow me. So unfortunately, if you get the book, you'll learn, and I will go ahead and tell you, my son was diagnosed with cancer at the end. So I got the call that my son was gravely ill, near death, and I knew it meant that I had to make a big life change, that I would have to leave where I was living and move to where my son was, because for those of you who are not familiar with my story, my late husband died of cancer. So I already had been through this once, and I knew that when you're in a relationship with somebody who, like a family member who's struggling with cancer, that it's a family event. It's not something that that partner goes through alone, or your child's going to go through alone. My child was single; he's single, so I knew he didn't have the family support, that I was going to have to be that for him. So I knew I was going to have to move, and I knew that this move would put my ex into a position that would be very negative for him, not good. And that's what happened. About 2 weeks later, he said, "I can't stay. I'm out of here," and they fled. And then shortly after that, he got a hold of me and said, "I think you know that we're over." And I'm like, "Yes, that's what I was waiting for." So I wish I could tell you how to set it up in your situation for you to get into that your partner into that position. But here's some things to think about, Crystal, and anybody who's also in this position. You know what motivates your partner. You know the things that they really want out of that life with you or what their supply is with you. Start to withhold those things. So maybe the supply with your ex is lots and lots of admiration, or maybe it is the lifestyle that you provide, or maybe it's the influence that you give this person, or maybe it's the intimacy that you two share. Start to pull those things back and make it unpleasant for that person. So in the sense that they're not getting these things from you. For example, my ex really liked lots of admiration. He loved to hear how special, how wonderful, how handsome. I just stopped providing that to him. I stopped feeding that part of his ego. He wasn't feeding that part of my ego either. So it wasn't like, here he's still really showing up nice. He never showed up nicely for me. Let's be honest. These relationships aren't like that. So but I stopped being so fawning, so over the top, so generous with my support. When you start to do that, then they feel that you're starving them of the things that they need. They really rely their ego. It's really odd. Their ego is super fragile. Narcissists are shaky and insecure, and they really need all of this supply. They use it like props to hold themselves up. So when you stop to do that, you withdrawn a major prop, which means he's going to have to, or she's going to have to look for it elsewhere. And that's what happened in my situation, is that he started to look for it more heavily elsewhere, realizing that I wasn't going to be a source of that. But yes, the first steps to leaving a narcissist does talk about the 7 different types of ways of leaving. So if you're looking for help around what are my options, how could I start to think about that? If I'm going to leave, what kind of documents do I need? Have you thought about that? Like, do you know where your marriage certificate is? Do you know where your birth certificate is? Those are the types of things that helps you think through so that you can get ready to leave. But I know leaving for me was terrifying. I think it was one of the hardest things as an adult I've ever done was to get ready to leave, because I knew something could go wrong. I mean, it's really, really hard. Oh, so Crystal says, I can't kick mine out. He controls everything. Is there a way, Crystal, for you to take some of that back, or for you to gain? So another way also to think about it is, okay, so maybe he thinks he's controlling all the money and he's controlling all the accounts. He controls even maybe your access to the car, all those types of things. But are there ways for you to open a separate account and start funneling money away? In fact, I saw a really cool, it was on TikTok Shop. There was this booklet, this like notebook, that if you put money inside of it and you put these different denominations inside, that over a period of time that you've saved $5,500. So I thought that was super, super cool. Crystal, you said you're not allowed to have money. There is way for you to start to get money. There's really creative ways. One of the creative ways, I have a podcast called Breaking Free from Narcissistic Abuse. And my partner, Tara Blair Ball, who's the co-host on the show, talks about she knows people who would, when they go to the grocery store, they would buy a Visa gift card and then put money on it, like $20 here, $20 there, and start to save that way. Others said, oh no, my partner reads through the grocery list and would note, or the receipt, and notice that I've done that. So what they would do is they would buy a product they didn't need, and then they would return it and then take that money and then pocket it. Oh, he shops with you. He's really got you under his thumb. So your situation is one of those situations. I wish I had a super creative idea, but what I'm going to urge you to do this is begin to watch for your partner's Achilles heel, a watch for where he's fatigued, what he's tired of, what he's maybe where he's wanting to kind of let go of things, or notice where his vulnerabilities are and pay attention to that and start to really watch for openings that you can take advantage of. I'll tell you, I'm going to get super, super vulnerable. And I know that and I'd be happy to take Dr. Jenny, I'd have to take your question about your mom. I'm going to be super vulnerable here. I have faith. So one of the things I started doing was I started praying. I actually started saying, God, you know the truth. You know what he's hiding. You also know a way out. I need a way out. I can't save myself. I started to be very vulnerable in my prayers and start asking for divine intervention. I truly believe that's what I got. I believe that I did get divine intervention, and that I really believe. And again, I normally don't talk about faith, but I really do believe that God cares about us, that we're a prisoner, that this is a form of oppression, severe oppression, and that makes God's heart angry. And I do believe he cared deeply that I was in trouble, and I began to ask for him to get, to save me. Some comments are being filtered out. I love TikTok that filters out comments. So I'm just suggesting, I mean, maybe you don't have faith, maybe that's not something you can turn to, but that's a possibility. Begin to really like ask for the universe, or ask for karma, or ask for, something to begin for you to, see some opening that normally that you don't see. And I'll tell you this also, Scarlett, it's going to cause you to get outside your comfort zone. You're going to have to do something that you don't want to do, that you feel terrified to do. But you're going to have to do. Karen, I know that this is why I don't talk about religious stuff, because we just ends up with, I'm not a theologian, and then we end up in these rabbit holes that are really, really tough. But here's one thing that my response to Karen's comment of that God cared so much, he wouldn't put you there in the first place. Well, yeah, but if God did that, then you'd be a puppet. And God doesn't want you a puppet. He wants you, you're not Pinocchio. He wants you to be a real boy and a real girl. So in order for that to happen, he gives us free will, which means we have the choice to be able to sort of make our choices and include get into relationships with people that are not good for us. So I appreciate your atheism, and that's where you're at. And like I said, I normally go here. I just know that Crystal's in a really bad spot. And sometimes it takes us moving into sort of an abstract perspective for us to say that, to look for something in a new direction with new eyes. That's what I'm saying. So I didn't mean to like stir everybody up who's like, no, all of that's bad and I hate that. I respect that that's not where you're at. But that's where I was at. I came to the end of myself. As a child, I survived severe assaults, severe physical assaults, and I knew what it was like to come to an end to myself as a child. But as an adult, I felt pretty capable about my life. I felt like I was in charge. But this relationship brought me to the end of myself. I knew that there was nothing more that I could do on my behalf, that I felt like I was being driven mad, like I was crazy. It was insane. I have never felt more insane. So Dr. Gemini is asking me a question. Her mom is constantly shutting the doors that could open such great doors for me. How do I put it? Yeah, I'm looking for, okay, boundaries that I'm still young in my 20s and I'm trying to get out. Can you give a practical example, Dr. Gemini, of how your mom is shutting the doors on you? I would love to know more about that and what's happening. And yeah, that's a great situation. Or not great great question. That's what I mean. Yeah, a lot of you have said that you have turned to your faith, and your faith was very, very instrumental. And yeah, it was for me too. I still have to say I have big questions these days. I wish it like solved all of that for me. It hasn't, but so Richie says, I called the police when he disappeared after threatening to harm himself. He was pleased that I cared so much. They took him aside and said, you know what? You need to leave, and put you in touch secretly with other people. That is amazing. Wow. Wow. That's I'm so thrilled to hear that. So so Richie Gales, is that what you did? Then did you contact those people that they gave you the contact number of? That's incredible. And I would love to know what community that you're in that helped you to do that. So Robin says, my husband is an attorney for police for the over 30 years, and they've been married 9 years, and it's been absolute hell. Yeah, it's amazing how, first of all, these toxic people are attracted to power, very attracted to power. So they'll end up getting into these relationships and where they can hold power and know influential people. So you'll see them in places like leadership in different institutions, including churches. You'll find them even as therapists or in mental health. You'll find them in the legal department, like different kind of police to police, or possibly in law and as attorneys. They're very attracted to power, so it's not uncommon for that to happen. Yeah. Oh, Susan, thank you so much for reading Love You More. Yeah. Would love to be my friend. Robin, I would love to be your friend too. Yeah, it's interesting. Kate's asking Crystal, can she make phone calls alone? I couldn't. I had no privacy. My partner was with me 24/7. So as much as I wanted to be with him for my own safety, he was with me because he didn't trust me. See, that's the thing. So when we're in these relationships with these individuals who are very narcissistic, they're paranoid. They really believe that the world's not safe, that everybody's potentially dangerous, and they include you. They believe that you're dangerous too. So they monitor us intensely so that we're never really truly alone, keeping an eye on us. I know there's people that in my club, I have Toxic Free Relationship Club, that they've had partners who set up security cams on them so they can watch what they're doing when they're at home. So some of us are literally living in a fishbowl where we've lost even the ability to go and do anything alone. I was mine worked with me. We didn't work outside the house, so he was with me constantly. It was just insane, just insane. So yeah, for those of you who are interested, be sure to check out my box set of Love You More and First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. You get the paperback, so you actually get these. And I know some of you have been scared about having them in paperback. So if you want the digital version, I can sell you the digital version of First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. I unfortunately can't sell you the digital version of Love You More because it's sold with Amazon through Kindle Unlimited. So I'm not allowed to do that, but I certainly could. I could sell those books to the First Steps to Living a Narcissist on digital, which, by the way, the digital form you can complete on your device. You can complete it on your phone or on your iPad because I made it's fillable. So it's actually a fillable version where you can write in your answers in your own book on your own device. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. Just contact me directly for that, and I'd be happy to make the arrangement for you for that so that you can get that. Yeah. Why do they intrude and then act as if it's the other person? Because they need to always look like they're always, I call it, they're always curating their image. So it's about how they look to other people so that they don't look bad. So they're flipping it constantly. Have you guys heard of the term DARVO, which is it's deny or yeah, deny, attack, reverse offender, and victim, so that you can flip it. Yeah, Crystal, my email is actually listed. It's hello@kerrymcavoyphd.com. Super, super interested. Karen, there is a playbook. It does definitely feel like that. Interesting thing is because their personality is wired it's the same deficits, which is an inability to have self-reflection, a loss of empathy, and then there's also this excessive focus on themselves and how others perceive them. So they're always watching how you're reacting to them, and as a result of that, that they do the same thing. It makes them very jealous people. They're highly competitive, and they anticipate that everybody's against them. So, you end up with this wild experience of similarity between all of us, which really feels it's I know that when I was going through it, I remember feeling like nobody has experienced this. How do you even talk about this out loud? And feeling really, really alone. And then when I started hearing other victims' stories, I was floored, just floored how many of you have gone through exactly the same thing. So, how does a narcissist sabotage you? Um, and then wants to just, why do they want to do that? Well, because they're very jealous people, very, very jealous people. They feel like life's unfair. So imagine this. I think this is the best way to kind of help know why they do what they do, is that imagine you're super, super insecure. And so as a result of that, you're looking for all this feedback to say that you're a good person. I mean, like super shaky, insecure. So you're excessively monitoring the world for feedback and input from other people. And then you're looking for people to validate that you're not the fake, the fraud, the failure, the shaky person that you feel that yourself to be. And as a result, then you are like hypersensitive to anything that makes you feel less than. And then you're also hypersensitive to anything that makes you feel at risk to be exposed or to be shown up. So then you end up doing everything around protecting and curating your reputation and your identity. So what you do then is you end up picking somebody that you think is really strong, really capable, the person who's going to compliment you, make you look good. But then you turn around and you find yourself, the minute you get into these relationships, that this person is actually, you view as competition. So though at first you think, oh, they're going to make me look better, but then when you're in a relationship with them, you start to discover, no, no, no. I mean, they're better than me here, and they do this better over here, and then they know so much about over that over there. Here's an example of how it showed up in my relationship. I have a PhD in psychology. My partner knew that. I figured he had gone to college. I didn't really care. It wasn't a big deal to me. I wasn't looking for that. He seemed intelligent enough to me that we had really great conversations. It was near the end of the relationship that he revealed to me that the college he attended was actually an uncredited program and that he paid people to write his papers. So here he's basically telling me he didn't really honestly earn his degree and that his degree wouldn't stand up to scrutiny because it wasn't a reputable college with any standing in the United States. So basically, his degree was a fraud. So here he had been living with me and knowing me for nearly 3 years. And he said, I'm really afraid you're going to figure this out and know this about me. So I'm going to tell you. First of all, I'm not a suspicious person that goes around and like tries to figure all that out. I'm not like running around verifying his education. It wasn't that big of a deal to me, but he was so shaky and it bothered him so much that he felt he needed to confess that to me. So that's what's happening in your relationship. You're in a relationship with somebody who at first thought that you were fabulous because you made them look good and you brought so much to them and to the relationship with you. But now that you're in a relationship with you, they view, oh, crap, this person's better at this, or this person does more at this, or they know a lot about that, and they start to feel really super shaky about you. So then they start to tear you down in order to make you, for you to feel like you're not all that, so they can say that they're better than you. So they start to undermine you, insult you. They do gaslighting. Now, do you guys know what gaslighting is? That's where you doubt your perception, your feelings, and your reality, or even your sense of self. They'll start to, like, you bring something up and say, you're always so sensitive. Or why are you worrying about that? Nobody worries about that. What's wrong with you? Or I never said that. They'll start to do things where you start to like question. You're like, did I say that? Or am I being just too sensitive? Maybe I'm making a big deal about nothing. Or whenever you bring up an issue, like there you go again. You can never let anything drop instead of dealing with the issue. They twist it, making you feel like the problem is you and not the problem. So they do all of that to sort of to get you into size so that you're not threatened and you're not a threat to them, so that you are not, so that you're in. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting messages and I'm trying to read these messages at the same time that I'm talking to you guys, but they begin to kind of erode your sense of self. Yeah, exactly. It's wild how these things happen, and it when you don't know that this is part of an abusive relationship, when you just think, "Oh, relationships are hard work. This is normal. Nobody has it easy. I've never seen a really good relationship." Then you start to think that the problem is that you and the other person, not that the other person is doing this to you. That's the big issue. This person is doing this to you. Oh, I love this. Cinderella said, "You can't take a joke. You're always so thin-skinned." Yeah, you'll do something. They'll make some snarky comment that really quote unquote is supposed to be a joke, but it's not, and it's at your expense. And then when you react, next thing you know, then they accuse you of being the one who has the issue. Not that they shouldn't have said that. They said that as a way to hurt you, but now you're being sensitive because you're reacting. So Shailene's asking a really big question. You want to how to get them to stop sabotaging you in family court. Well, actually, I think that here's what I always warn people. When you start to leave and get ready to leave, anticipate that this is going to be, it's always been a battle. This person's battled you about everything. They've battled you over how you've hung clothes. It happened in my life. They battled you over how you bought grocery or how you spend money. They're definitely going to battle you when you try to leave for what's fair. And because they think nothing's ever fair, they're going to go to the nth degree in order to get everything they possibly can from you because they want to make sure they come out on top. And because, in their opinion, they're leaving you, so they want to leave you as poor as possible, as degraded as possible, so they can feel that smug and superior. So anticipate when you leave that the legal battle is going to be nasty. It's going to be very nasty. So again, I know for some of you, you're already in it. It's too late. You can't like go back and change. That's why I'm saying to you, if you haven't left, get ready to leave. Do the leaving part carefully with help. Get advice before you do it. Consider getting some legal consultation before you even step out, and don't let them know anything that you're doing before you leave. Yeah. Sometimes you can get a free consultation with an attorney, even attorney shop. Make sure that you find somebody who believes that narcissistic abuse is real, who knows how manipulative and exploitive some people are, who has some sophistication around issues like custody battles. I would highly recommend you check out Angela's material on Family Court Corner. Family Court Corner. Another really great consultation is Onyx Consulting. Onyx Consulting. Both of those offers legal advice that you can be able to have help as you prepare to do this. So Gina says, my problem is I can't find an attorney who will help. That's awful. That's really awful. Yeah. Attorney shop, so they can't represent the soon to be ex. That's another. Yeah. See, here's the hard part. Those of us who get stuck in abusive relationships tend to be people who are very agreeable. We're cooperative. We believe in the goodness of other people. We have a conscience. We like to do things in a fair way. I believed that if anything could be worked out with a good conversation. Well, the problem is you're with the person who is the opposite of you. The opposite of you. They're antagonistic. They're highly suspicious. They don't believe they think everybody's out for themselves. Everybody's a money grubbing, person. So they believe they have to protect yourself go to an nth degree to be able to do that. So they are very, very careful, very antagonistic. Yeah, absolutely. They just want to win. So you have to anticipate this is going to be the mindset of the person. You have to find somebody who legally thinks the way that they do, which is really, really hard. How do you carefully plan to leave? My in-laws live with me and it's hard. Yeah, my in-law lived with me too. It was very hard. I agree. And again, you have to find ways to be sneaky. That's the part I didn't like. I'll tell you. The part I really didn't like was it turned me into somebody that more resembled to him than I liked. That I had to begin to be sneaky and keep things from him. I'm a really open person. I just am. I tell it like it is. What you see is what you get. I found I had to start keeping things private, which felt like secret keeping to me, but it really isn't. It was keeping things to myself in order for my protection. I wasn't doing it because I was trying to exploit him. I was doing it because I was trying to save myself. But I'll tell you, it didn't feel comfortable. It really didn't feel comfortable. So Cinderella wants to know, would you confront a daughter-in-law who's trying to alienate my granddaughter? She's in tears and she's only 12 and she loves me. Do I speak up or do I go radio silence? Well, the big question I have for you, Cinderella, is would you talking to the 12-year-old granddaughter put her in the middle? And if so, what will that do to her and the relationship that you have with her? My concern is if you start to in any way address this that might then make her feel like she has to pick sides. And chances are, if your daughter-in-law has some narcissistic traits, they're very good at picking up when that's starting to happen. And chances are they're going to then work to sort of stop it or to create more tension and ultimately make the daughter have to pick her. So I understand the urge that you have. You might be able to talk about it more indirectly, like say things like, I'm always here if you need to talk to somebody, um, or I want you to know that whatever you tell me stays with me. You can say things like that without, coded things, without directly speaking to her relationship of her mom. You can say things like, people always need to know that they have safe people in their life, and I want you to know that I can be that for you. So you're kind of dancing around the issue without coming out and confronting it. Yeah, trust, I agree. Trust is everything. Trust for her is everything. So that's also super important that whatever you say, I'm assuming you're already doing this. I'm not saying that you're not, but whatever you're doing, you need to make sure you do perfectly so that she feels like you fulfilled your end of the bargain. That's super important. Tough situation, and one that I know really pulls on our heartstrings. It's just feels awful when we see somebody we love and somebody young in this position. And I know many of us as parents often feel this way with our kids and their step parent. We feel like we see them having to be in this horrible kind of no-win situation that's so tough. And we know that often they barely have the skills to do normal things. They're learning how to read and write and do math, and then they're having to navigate the tricky waters of a landmine with a narcissistic parent. Very tough. Could I please tag Onyx Consulting? Yeah, Jesse, yeah, if you put Onyx Consulting in your search bar for Instagram, she pops up. I know she does because I just did it. So I can't tag her because she's not in this feed, but I know if you search for her, she's very, very findable. And she's also on TikTok as well. And I've talked to her personally. She's very, very smart. So, so bipolar says, I recently got clinically diagnosed with astronomical levels of dark triad traits. Excuse me, sorry about that. Now what? Oh, that's real. So how are you feeling about that? Are you surprised that you were diagnosed with having personality disorder traits? I'd be love to know that. Onyx is spelt Onyx. Onyx. She's on Instagram and on TikTok. And she's really wonderful. And the other really great one, Cinderella, is look for Family Court Corner. Family Court Corner. She's another coach who's on TikTok and Instagram who helps people with legal, especially custody legal issues. She's very, very good that way. Yeah, back to bipolar bear. Yeah, I would love to have you say more about what's going on and how are you feeling about that. That's a pretty devastating diagnosis. Does it make me a narcissist not to be able to put up with what I believe is a narcissistic in-law? No, absolutely not. It means that you're an abuse victim who doesn't want to put up with that. I knew I had malignant narcissism, but I'm all three and I'm very scared. Yeah, I would be really upset about that too. What I would recommend is look for a therapist with a look for a therapist with personality disorder experience, particularly narcissistic personality experience. I would say that probably is your predominant personality trait. I would think is more the narcissism. Not to say that you don't have a lot of antisocial personality traits, but the Machiavellian sort of sits between the two. That's more of that sneaky, charming, scheming, deceptive way of being. So you want to find somebody who's very good at knowing how to treat that, because it's a different type of therapy than you would normally have. It's not insight-based therapy. It's more practical based therapy. Kind of helps you with that. You also might want to check out dialectic behavioral therapy. It's called DBT is what you'll find it for short. That's also been shown to be effective not only with borderline personality disorder, but also effective with narcissistic personality disorder. So those are my two recommendations. Yeah, definitely. If you're upset about it and you care about it, that you're like this is not who you want to be, I want to tell you kudos, because I think that's the first step to becoming what you could be called a self-aware narcissist, which means you're somebody who's deliberately trying to work against your innate hardwiring, your personality traits. It is possible. I know people who do that hard work. Yeah, I'm so looking forward to seeing you on Thursday too. You have a good day. I'm glad that you hung out with me for a little while today. Um, yeah, you're welcome, Cinderella. And thank you for asking me that question. Can you tell me how a narcissist acts as a roommate and a friend? Carrie, Chib, can you say more about what's happening in your relationship that makes it feel like it's becoming more platonic, more like roommates instead of like an intimate partnership? Because one of the things that I've noticed is that all narcissistic people with a lot of narcissistic traits, they don't do intimacy well at all. They just don't. They don't know how to really um, share themselves, be vulnerable. Because remember, if you caught earlier, I talked about how fragile and shaky their self-esteem is, their sense of self is, and so they're hiding. So as a result of that, intimacy means you have to get known. It's really exposing yourself to somebody. Well, they don't want to do that because they're afraid that if you saw them at their what they perceive or feel to be at their worst, you're going to say, "No, I don't want anything to do with you." So they're highly terrified of being seen like that. So, in fact, you saw a bipolar bear coming in with all caps. That you're seeing a wound. That was wounded behavior. He's freaked out by his diagnosis. He's undone by that, and he's scared shitless. So that's what happens in the relationships, is that intimacy is very terrifying for them. Yeah, they can be good at physical intimacy because that's more performative. You can learn to be good at something without revealing anything. You can learn to be good at physical intimacy without really sharing your heart and sharing your fears and sharing on who you are. So, yeah, they can get good at that. But chances are you'll even see that change over time, that it won't stay good, because real good physical intimacy is being very vulnerable with each other, and that's just not something they're capable of doing. He's flirting in front of me with his younger colleague and says I'm crazy and he didn't do it. Yeah, mine did that too. Mine did that a lot. He would definitely. In fact, I could spot who he was grooming and who he's wanting to have a next relationship with. Hey, so good to see you on your way. I'm so glad that you're here hanging out with us today. Yeah, and what he basically said was he gaslighted you by saying that you misread it and it really wasn't what you thought it was. Your gut is listen, one of the things that I have walked away with from all these relationships, from listening to you and from my survival of these relationships, is that if your gut tells you it is what it is that. Trust your gut. If you know what flirting looks like, come on. We're not you're not born yesterday. So if it looks, I mean, there's a scene out of In Love You More. I think it's like chapter I'm trying to like remember where in the book it is. Maybe chapter 15 or 20, somewhere in there. We're at a hotel, and we're getting dressed to go out, and it's a weekend. We're going to go tell his mom that he's been cheating on me. So it's a big weekend. We stop over in Mexico City for overnight, and we're going to go find some place to eat. And I'm late. I'm running late. So he goes out ahead of me, says he's getting a drink. I come down to go look for him, and I first go to the bar and he's not there. So I start to search for him, and I find him talking to this handsome woman. Now, let me paint the scene for you. They're standing like in a huddle, and their heads are bent towards one another, and they've got that like cozy, warm look about them, with that way they're glancing at each other and kind of chuckling. You know it. And whatever is being said is not a good thing. And I walked up knowing that I'm breaking up this intimate conversation where they're flirting with each other. And sure enough, he then like catches himself, because he's really good about that. And he introduces me, and she acts cold. So I know now she's acting like I'm the competitor that has disrupted something happening between of them. When really it's my husband that she's he's hitting on a woman in front of me. So yeah, it was, and we get down. So they wrap it up and they leave. We leave and go to the restaurant. And then I said, "Hey, I don't like that." I don't like what just happened here. That's really uncomfortable. She's into you. She has a hots for you, and I'm not comfortable. Oh no, you're seeing too. I mean, that really? Like, come on, dude. You're not dumb. I even said that. You're not dumb. I know what I saw. That was highly inappropriate, and there's no way you would really want me doing this with with a man. No. In fact, one time I was texting a business guy around Airbnb, something related to vacation rentals is what we were running at the time. We had a vacation rental business. So I was texting my realtor around a business question he had, and my ex blew up and said, "You're talking to a man. How?" I mean, it was business. I could have like shown him the text and said, "He wants to know how to price a room." Like, I mean, not even the same thing. So yeah, what you experienced was gaslighting, and what it gets you to do, and this is why even you probably shared it here, it gets you to distrust yourself. You're wondering, did I really make something up? Was it really what I thought it was? Maybe I'm just, being a little sensitive, and maybe I'm being insecure, or maybe I'm just not confident about our relationship. No, it was what it was. You saw it correctly. It was wrong. And he knows it should be she too, by the way. I'm not gender specific, but they know that this was an effort to get you to doubt yourself so that you don't see it for what it really actually was, because then it would force you to have to make a decision. If your partner is doing this, then you have to begin to think about what you're going to do about the relationship. And that means they're losing control. They're not ready to have you jump there for you, because that means you're going to like possibly leave. And no, 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 we don't leave on our timeline. We leave on their timeline. They always want to be in control. So that's why it happened that way. Yeah. It's bizarre. So Robin said her husband was constantly checking out 20-something-year-olds even 2 weeks after our wedding. In fact, I just went on a date with somebody, and he disappeared for 3 weeks and then came back and wanted to know if I wanted to meet up again. Like, hell no. I mean, 3 weeks and behind and no contact in between. But when I was on this date, I hadn't remembered this until just now. He was constantly scanning the room and watching everybody that walked by, and he particularly watched women who walked by. And he even said, "I'm not watching people." And I'm thinking, yeah, you are. I'm watching you watch people. You're watching people. And I just thought, I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm with somebody who can't keep their eyes off of everybody else in the room. It's just not the kind of relationship I want these days. So yeah, Crystal, that. Whatever's going wrong. Yeah, it is wrong. It's wrong on so many levels. I agree. So when he got back to me, I said, "Nah, I'm just not interested. Thanks, but no thanks." So pass on by. Have you guys heard of I'm trying to date. It's hard. I'm not dating a lot. I'm so picky these days. But there's called burn the haystack. It's called burn the haystack method. So the minute somebody does something that sort of like really makes you feel uncomfortable, like watching people on a date, you block and delete. You burn the haystack. So that's what I'm doing. We'll see where it goes with that. I don't know if it will. There's these days I'm kind of like, if it happens, it's great. And if it doesn't happen, it's fine. I'm fine. Life is fine. I don't need anybody, fix my life. I'm good. But yeah, I've got about a few more minutes before we wrap it up today. But any other questions? It's been wonderful hanging out with you. If you guys are not following me, please do. Please make sure to subscribe and follow. And can I talk about chronic illnesses with people who have a narcissistic partner? What's happening with that chronic illness? I'd love to hear more about that. Oh, you're so welcome, Robin. And I'm really thrilled to get to know you better today. Same with Crystal. There's been a few new people that we've been talking today. Ricky asked, "My ex is near the end, would pick fights was an excuse to go out." Mine did that too, Crystal. This is what mine would do. Mine would say, mine would pick a fight, throw a hissy fit right at bedtime, and then storm out and stonewall for the entire night. Be gone till early in the morning, and then I'd find out this big bill, because remember, he was living off my dollar, so I could log into the bank account and see what he's doing. He would like log, and this was in another country, so this was cheap, meaning he spent a lot of money. He'd rack up a bill on a lot of a bar bill, a huge bar bill, and I knew that. I think one night, yeah, I did do this. I forgot this. One night he stormed off, and his phone showed that he was at like a 7-Eleven sitting. And I think I texted him and he said, "I sat at a 7-Eleven at a bar stool." So I drove by that place the next day to see if it had stools in it. No, it didn't. I figured what he'd done was he had parked the car near this place, left his phone, and then met up with somebody. So it would make it look like he sat at the 7-Eleven all night when he didn't. They'll do the most crazy stuff to make. So here I'm going to tell you what I learned near the end that I really wished I had learned way faster. I learned that if something feels wrong, it is. And if they're treating me in a way that shows chronic disrespect, that's not a safe relationship. That I want to have somebody that I feel safe to be myself, and that relationships don't take hard work. Healthy relationships are easy. They're easy. Yeah, exactly. We need to live like the Golden Girls. That's a great example. They have a great relationship on that. Or even the relationship we saw on Friends. And I know a lot of us are still rocked over Matthew Perry's death. Well, one of the things why we love Friends so much is that because of the great camaraderie they had with each other. We don't need a relationship that makes us feel less than, makes us feel like we're walking on eggshells, like we can't safely be ourselves. So if you're feeling like you have to make yourself smaller, make yourself quieter, like you're feeling like you can't show up or speak up or even say something that's normal for fear of where it's going to go or how they're going to take it wrong, this is not the right person for you. And I'm not even saying this person is a narcissist. I'm just saying it's just not the right person for you. You deserve to have somebody who loves you exactly the way that you are, that you feel like you're the best, that you feel like you can be free to be yourself. So I'm so glad you guys are here, that we're hanging out together, we're learning about this stuff together. And I just think this is fantastic. And for those of you who don't know, I'm here every Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'd love to have you come back and hang out with me some more because I always love giving advice as a psychologist. I know that somebody asked me some question and I never addressed that question, and I'm afraid I lost track of it because we have been going on for so long. But hey, this is completely off the topic. Those of you who know me know that I wear a wig. So I bought this wig and it was really like light around my face, and I've discovered that that's bad. I'm not a blonde, so light around my face is bad. So last night I took a furniture marker and I tried to root it and add some texture and color. And I think it turned out pretty well. I hope it doesn't look like somebody took a a marking pen to their hair, but because that's what I did. I took a pen to my hair. But yeah, I think it makes it more wearable where I can wear it. I found out though. I bought this on Amazon, and I've learned is one thing I wondered, like, why is it so much cheaper on Amazon than other wig shops? Well, I can tell it's not a high quality piece from this company. That probably was one of their, like, they sort of, cast off and then they offered to resell it, which, so I have a feeling it's going to have a short life, which is fine. That happens with some. Yeah, it's kind of it's supposed to be a brown, but it's more of a reddish brown. So all this dark stuff is what I added. That's more. And my son helped me last night. He goes, "I think you need to add streaks." So I actually had added streaks of it in my hair. So yeah, it's fun. Wearing wigs, is once you get over the shock of the fact that you need to wear a wig, it starts to have fun with it. You're like, what kind of color and what can I do that looks different? And how can I do that? And yeah, so I'm just trying to embrace it. Can narcissists be dangerous once we've figured them out? They can be. So be careful about that. Do be careful about that. It means that they feel like now that you can't be trusted. I know that certainly happened to my relationship where he got really suspicious of me and started following me more, keeping up with me, watching me more. So be very, very careful. Oh, I'm glad I try to buy wigs that are not obvious. So yeah. Hey, you guys, I need to get going. I'm going to now go hang out with my sons for Halloween night. Be careful with your kids. I know some of you are heading out yourselves, so be really careful this evening. Have a great time. And I'll be back here next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I just loved being here with all of you today.